"Pack your bags and get the hell out." Those were the first words out of her mouth, and I gotta tell you, I hadn't even finished my coffee. She didn't ask, she commanded. Threw $200 at my boots like I was some squatter she found living in her pool house. All I could do was stand there, chainsaw still humming in my hands, the mountain air biting at my cheeks, and watch this woman in high-dollar heels stomp onto my grandfather's land and demand that I clear out so her book club could enjoy a weekend of Pinot Grigio and paperback thrillers. Now, let me back up a second. Name's Lucian Wade, and I was born with sawdust in my veins, or so my dad used to say. I'm 45, union electrician, Denver born and bred. 20 years running wire through offices for folks who'll complain a $2,000 chandelier is 3 inches off-center. But my weekends, they belong up here, to the cabin my grandpa built, to the sound of pine needles crunching under boots and the tang of cedar in the air. The city? That's just a place to collect a paycheck. Out here is where I remember who I am. That old cabin, it's more than a building. Grandpa Sam Wade raised it with his own hands, back in '43 after the war. Timber frame, stone foundation, every board fit together by a man who believed some things should last longer than a Hollywood marriage. When he died 3 years ago, he left me more than property. He left me stories. How he and the other vets shaped this mountain, donating land to help families settle. How they'd hunt in the fall and help each other raise barns in the spring. Community used to mean something around here. But things change. Pinebrook Mountain went from log cabins and pickup trucks to beige condos and shiny BMWs faster than you can say market value. And leading that charge, our own self-appointed queen of the HOA, Bethany Cromwell. 52, Malibu transplant, real estate mogul, and president of the Homeowners Association. If Martha Stewart and a steamroller had a love child, it'd be her. Her mission? Purge all the blue-collar out of Pinebrook and make everything luxury mountain living, which, as far as I can tell, means expensive and soulless. Bethany's got a special talent for sniffing out anyone who doesn't fit her vision. The Hendersons got slapped with fines for their work van. Pete Martinez, his flower garden lowered community standards, so he got harassed out of state. And me? I was the last old blood left, and my cabin, well, it was a problem. But what Bethany never bothered to check, with all her legal threats and pastel sweater sets, is that my place isn't under her rule. See, Grandpa's land predates the HOA by 30 years, grandfathered in with protections the city can't touch. All this brings us back to that Saturday, the day Bethany's crusade went from subtle to nuclear. I was splitting firewood, enjoying that satisfying growl of the saw, when her BMW crept up my drive, doors closing with that muted thunk that says, "I spent more on this car than you make in a year." She steps out, business suit, heels, that smile like a shark on payday. She knew I was divorced, knew I was alone up here most weekends. But she didn't know about the folder of legal documents Grandpa left me, insurance against exactly this kind of trouble. Monday morning, 7 a.m. sharp, doorbell rings, official as a funeral. There's a certified letter that weighs as much as a cinder block. Notice of violation, it says, drafted by lawyers who charge by the comma. My crime? Unpermitted structure, non-compliant exterior, daily fines, $500 until compliance. Estimated cost to bring it up to code, $15,000. All for not painting my grandpa's workshop beige. I laughed out loud. 15 grand to erase 60 years of history and make it look like every other overpriced cardboard box up here. But I'm not stupid. I took a personal day and headed to the county records office. Place smelled like mildew and old coffee. The clerk, Helen, helped me dig out the gold. 1943 deed, Grandpa's signature, records showing our property was here before there was even a road. Photographs of Sam Wade sketching the neighborhood layout, shaping the community with city planners. Legally ironclad. I sent everything to Bethany, thinking that'd be the end of it. But if you think reason stops a woman on a power trip, you've never met Bethany. She fires back an email, so fast you'd think she'd been waiting by the computer all morning. She claims the property lost its status because I wasn't living there full-time after Grandpa died, threatens to have the HOA declare it abandoned, and calls for an emergency board meeting to seize it. Oh, and by the way, her pal Coleman Reeves, the city building inspector, will be out next week to assess safety hazards. The playbook was clear. Drown me in paperwork, weaponize bureaucracy, and hope I tap out before she runs out of ink. By Wednesday, the pressure was on. Anonymous complaints started flooding City Hall. Somebody said I was running an illegal business, Another said I had a junkyard out back. I'd see neighbors in the store, and suddenly everyone's real interested in the nutritional info on Rice Krispies. Even the folks I'd known for years started keeping their distance. Fear's a contagious thing. Friday came, and I saw the game for what it was. This wasn't about a book club, or even my property. Bethany wanted me gone, pure and simple, just like she'd driven out the rest. But she made one fatal mistake. She thought I'd fold. She thought I was like the Hendersons, or Pete, or any of the others she'd steamrolled. But she didn't know what Grandpa left behind. She didn't know about the truth, documented, notarized, bulletproof. Come Monday, here comes Coleman Reeves, clipboard and all, marching up to my porch like he's serving a warrant. He picks over every inch of that cabin, tests every outlet, taps every beam, finally writes up a report on a loose board and a sun-faded outlet cover. You've got 15 days to fix these or face condemnation. Estimated repair, $3,000. $3,000 for a board I could fix with $12 and a trip to Home Depot. It would have been funny if it weren't so ridiculous. But I remembered what my cousin Derek, he's a paralegal, always said, don't argue with inspectors. Document, document, document. That afternoon, I drove around the neighborhood snapping photos, loose deck boards, peeling paint, all the same violations at other homes, including Bethany's. Her own fence was 6 inches over the legal limit. Next day, County Health shows up, claims there's sewage odors threatening the water supply. Inspector pokes around, finds nothing, bills me $800 for follow-up testing. Proving innocence, it turns out, isn't free. Then it hits me, this isn't just unfair. It's a civil rights violation. Targeting specific residents, ignoring the same offenses at others' homes? That's lawsuit territory. So, I file a complaint with the state attorney general with photos to prove it. I figured that'd slow Bethany down. Instead, she ramped up, started circling my property in her car, sent her husband sneaking around with a tape measure at midnight. Friday, there's an HOA board meeting. She stacked the room with her people, wealthy retirees who want Pinebrook to be the next Aspen. But sometimes history bites back. Next week, thick envelope from Mitchell & Associates, big law firm downtown. Cease and desist, over my cameras, on my own land. 2 days later, Deputy Jake Williams, Bethany's golf buddy, shows up about a complaint. She says I'm intimidating her. But that's when Derek calls. He's found something huge in the county archives. I meet him in the woods, and we uncover the original 1943 survey stakes. Turns out, my property extends 25 feet further than the current fence. Which means Bethany's award-winning rose garden, her decorative fountain, her precious stone walkway, they're all on my land. Her own house is encroaching. And here's the twist, the line doesn't just slice through her backyard. It runs straight through the main access road to the community center. I could block access to every meeting she wants to hold. While Derek files the paperwork, I start digging into Bethany's background. Turns out, she's been listing Pinebrook houses for years, never disclosing her HOA role, a legal no-no. She's described the community as free from problematic elements. I mean, if that's not code for blue-collar families, what is? Now I've got leverage, enough for complaints to the real estate board, the AG, and the local press. The pressure gets to Bethany. She starts lashing out in every direction. Calls to my boss, to the IRS, even animal control. I don't even own a dog. She tries to fracture the community, but some old-timers have my back. Janet Morrison hands me a note. Your grandfather helped us build our garage. We remember who the real troublemakers are. Now, here's where things get cinematic. I'm cleaning out Grandpa's workshop when I find a loose panel. Behind it, a metal-strong box. Inside is the real ace, a 1945 covenant, signed and notarized, granting the Wade family perpetual access to all community amenities. Grandpa had donated the land for the lake, the center, all of it, in exchange for those rights. The legal language is airtight. Any attempt by the HOA to restrict us voids their whole development. I almost dropped the box. Armed with this, I call in sick from work. Derek brings coffee and we lay out our case. We prep a display of Grandpa's contributions, military service, letters, blueprints. Janet helps rally other families targeted by Bethany, Hendersons, Pete, the Kellys. We file a federal civil rights lawsuit, and Derek drafts a complaint for the real estate board. Local newspaper Tom Bradley picks up the story, veteran's grandson harassed by HOA president. The tide turns. Bethany, of course, doesn't go quietly. She shows up on my porch waving a briefcase, $75,000 cash to buy me out. Everyone wins, she says. When I refuse, she loses it, files a false police report saying I threatened her with a chainsaw. I get arrested, spend the night in jail, but the community rallies. The American Legion covers bail, neighbors feed me, and Pete drives all the way from Arizona to testify. Derek files counter-complaints for false reporting, civil rights abuse, and the state board launches an investigation. Bethany's husband threatens divorce, her book club recants their statements, and now she's facing public disgrace, professional ruin, and maybe even criminal charges. The final act? The emergency HOA meeting. Bethany rolls in with lawyers, consultants, even private security. The room is packed, press, veterans, old-timers, and more than a few folks who just want to see a fight. She launches into her presentation, charts, music, dire warnings about my cabin. Then Patricia Brighton, our new ally on the board, gives me the floor. I walk up, framed photo of Grandpa in hand, lay out the documents, deeds, surveys, the covenant. The room goes silent as I explain. My family built this place. Every right she's tried to take away is protected by law. The constitutional law professor backs me up, explains the federal violations. Bethany cracks, starts screaming, calls for my arrest, and Deputy Martinez calmly tells her she's the one under investigation. The room erupts, applause, cheers, even a few tears. The board unanimously votes to clear all violations, then, with a sense of poetic justice, votes for Bethany's resignation on the spot. That's not just a win, that's karma arriving right on time. Now 6 months later, Pinebrook is unrecognizable in the best way. Bethany's gone, her license revoked. The new board restores community gardens, welcomes trucks back, and celebrates the working families who made this place home. The community center bears my grandfather's name, and our defense fund helps others fight back against HOA bullies. You know, I always thought of myself as just a guy trying to mind his business, maybe leave a little something behind for his kid. But after all this, I realized what Grandpa meant when he said, "Some fights you don't pick, they pick you. And when they do, you better stand tall." Turns out, standing up didn't just save my cabin. It protected the dream my family built for generations. It's funny. What starts as a fight over a paint color or a flower garden can end up being about the whole idea of who gets to belong and who gets to say no. So let me leave you with this. Is it really about property values, or is it about the value of the people who call a place home? And if you had to choose between following the rules or defending what's right, which would you pick? I want to know, have you ever stood up to a bully with a clipboard? Did you win? Or are you still fighting? Tell me below. I read every story. Maybe together, we'll make sure the next Samuel Wade out there never has to fight alone.